everybody, this is Heather. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got a card tutorial for you, and we're going to be making this tall Slimline card for Father's Day. I've used cute little woodland animals to spell out "For You, Dad" on a tall card. This would also be a fun card for your dad's birthday as well. Today I'm using stamps from Hello Bluebird from their Spooky Spellers set. I'm going to be using the little skunk, the squirrel, and the fox, and also the "For You." I really love this set. It's very versatile and definitely doesn't have to be used for just Halloween. And also from Hello Bluebirds, I'm going to be using 2 of their leaves from the More Jungle Little set along with its coordinating dies. A tall Slimline card will fit inside a long business size envelope so you can easily put your card in and pop it in the mail. For my base, I have a piece of dark chocolate cardstock, and it is cut to 8 by 9, and I have scored on the 8 side and folded it in half. I have kind of a rusty red wood grain pattern paper from Muse Studio, and I've trimmed that to 3 3/4 by 8 3/4. For my stamping, I'm using this kind of light tan, light craft colored cardstock. I have a small piece to stamp my leaves, and for each of the critters, I've die cut a stitch square die, and it measures about 2 1/4, and I've die cut that 3 times. From the same brown cardstock as the base, I've die cut 3 more times from another stitched square, and this one measures about 2 3/4. And these stitched square dies are from Stampin' Up! For the coloring on my little animals, I mainly wanted to use alcohol-based markers, so I'm going to be using the Tri-Blend markers from Spectrum Noir, but I wanted some white accents, so for that I'm going to be using a white Prismacolor pencil. You could use a white gel pen, but I think the colored pencil, when coloring in a larger area, really gives you more of a smooth look, and on this light tan cardstock, that white really pops. With black memento ink, I've gone ahead and stamped out each of my critters onto the stitched squares. If you're more comfortable stamping and then die cutting first, you could absolutely do that. And I've also stamped some leaves. I'm going to start off by coloring in the areas that I want white with my white Prismacolor pencil. You want to have a nice sharp pencil so you can get into small areas, and you want to try to avoid your black stamped lines as best as you can. And you can really layer and build up this white color so that it's nice and bright. If you do happen to accidentally color over your line and it's not as dark as you would like, you can take like a thin tip pen. I'm using a Le Pen permanent pen, and you could go over those stamped areas just to make them darker again. On the fox, I've colored in his muzzle and the tip of his tail with the white colored pencil, and also part of the inside of his ears. For the skunk, I'm coloring in the top of his head, a little section of his belly down here, and the top of his tail, all in the same white Prismacolor pencil. And moving on to my little squirrel, I'm going to color around his eyes, just kind of a small oval with the white. Color in his nose, give him just a little bit of a white belly poking up and down below the sign, and also a little bit on the inside of his ears. After I've colored in with the alcohol-based markers, I'm going to go back in with the white and add a few more details. So I'm going to keep that pencil nearby. If you've watched any of my videos, you probably know how much I love the Tri-Blend markers from Spectrum Noir. They're alcohol-based markers that have 3 of the same shade on one marker. It makes it for really quick and easy blending. I'm taking the lightest shade of muted brown and adding just a little bit of shadow around the edges of each of the signs that the critters are holding. For the fox, I'm coloring in the rest of his body that I didn't color in white with the lightest shade of the Coral Blend marker. And I really recommend, if you're going to be coloring on something other than white cardstock, that you experiment first to see what your markers are going to look like. So they're definitely going to take on a different tone if you're coloring on a tan or a craft or even a cream cardstock. So just experiment with that a little bit before you actually stamp and color in your image. I'm going in now with the darkest shade of the coral blend, add some shading and shadowing to my fox. Moving on to the mid-tone, I'm going to overcolor just a little between the lightest and the darkest shade and kind of blend them together. I do have more detailed videos about these markers on my channel if you're not familiar with them. Once I have that laid down, I'm going to go back to that lightest shade and just blend those all in together. I kept the coloring pretty simple. Moving on to the skunk, I'm using the Ice Gray Blend marker. And I'm coloring in everything that I didn't color in with white in the lightest shade. And just like before, I'm going in with the darker tone and add my shading and shadowing. I'm going to follow right underneath the edge of the tail. Going to overcolor those with the medium tone. And again, back to the lighter shade and blend this all in together. And sometimes I like to go one more time back in with that darker shade to really emphasize the shadow. I'm going to do that on my little skunk. For my little skunk, I'm using the red-brown marker. And again, just like on the other critters, I'm going to color in everything, avoiding those little white areas. With the lightest shade laid down, I'm going to go in and add shading and shadowing with the darker tone. Around the tail, I want to make sure I kind of follow that curly cue of his tail. Moving on to the medium tone and blend everything together with the lightest shade. Well, something that I like to do when I'm not really using my stamp designs in a scene is to trace around them with a pale gray marker. I'm using the lightest shade of the brown gray blend. It's going to look a little dark when I first lay it down, but it's going to really fade out. I just really not like that nice kind of pop and a little bit of shadow and dimension that it gives to the images. And it is subtle, but I really do think it makes a difference. So I'm going to carefully trace around all my little animals. With my alcohol coloring laid down, I'm going to go back to that same white Prismacolor pencil and add a few little highlights and shine details to each of the animals. I'm also going to add a little bit of detail to the signs as well. My skunk, I'm going to give him kind of some little, almost looks like eyebrows to me. Little cheek. And a few little lines on his body. And his sign. I'm going to do the same on my fox. So I really like that nice little white detail added on top of those markers. For my sentiment, I'm using Cajun Craze ink from Stampin' Up. I thought it really went well with my background pattern paper. And I'm just going to stamp each one in the center of the sign. The 4 and the U are from the Spooky Spellers set. And this dad is from just a really old clear stamp set. I honestly am not even sure where I got it from. So here are my little animals all finished. And the last color I'm going to do is on these leaves. I stamped out and colored 4 of each of these 2 different designs of leaves, and I used yellow-green blend in the lighter and the darker shade to color them in. And after I've colored them all in, I'm going to take their coordinating die, a little piece of washi tape, and tape that in place and run that through my die cutting machine until I have 8 leaves. With all my leaves die cut out, I'm ready to assemble my card. I put tape runner on the back of my pattern paper, and I'm going to center that onto my brown card base. I'm going to adhere each of my animals to a brown square. I've got tape runner on the back of my skunk, and I'm going to put him on the center of my card at just a little bit of an angle. And I've placed foam tape on the back of my 2 other squares. I'm going to place those down at a bit of an angle, overlapping the one in the center. To finish off, I'm going to add my leaves. I'm going to apply a little bit of glue pen. I'm just going to scatter these around. I'm going to have one on each of the animals' squares, and then a few just scattered here and there. You could also do this with glue dots if you wanted. And here's our finished card. I think this woodland theme is really great for a masculine card. I love the tall, slim line card style. It gives you a lot of area to work with and play around. And I really love the accent that white colored pencil added to my alcohol markers. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to check out my channel and subscribe. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.